Now, let's talk about Skinner for a moment to try to see if we can put this sort of a framework, or your logopsychology, not logotherapy, into a little perspective here. Now, what has bothered a lot of people is that he's taking a number of principles of shaping responses of human beings that really are very much the same as the principles that might be used to shape the behavior of animals, even pigeons.
As long or as soon as you conceive of it as something, as a basis with a superstructure, a basis on which to build the proper building called humanity of humans, then you need not be so critically. Because as I put it at the beginning of our dialogue, you remember I said man doesn't cease to be an animal, but he's at the same time infinitely more than an animal. And I invoke the image, the analogy, the simile of an airplane. An airplane doesn't cease to be an airplane, although on the ground he may move like an automobile. The same holds for the human being. A human being has learning processes, conditioning processes. A human being can, if fallen mentally ill, be reconditioned in a healthy direction and so forth. And in this sense, Skinner and all the other behaviorists are absolutely right. But they must not stop. Or after they have delivered their message, after they have published their books, we, you and I, need not stop and say that's the whole story. But we have to recognize that in order really and totally to understand the human being, we cannot be spared entering the human dimension, the next dimension. And this becomes particularly important if we are confronted with questions such as, is there a freedom? Is there a dignity? Skinner did not move beyond freedom and dignity, but he stopped before freedom and dignity because he programmatically restricted his view and his research by which he arrived at his view to the lower plane, which is of course shared with other animals. And so you will understand how come that I once reacted in a question-answer period to a student of Konrad Lorenz. Konrad Lorenz, who was tracing back the behavior, or better to say all types of misbehavior of drivers to certain innate releasing mechanisms and so forth along the lines of Lorentzian teachings. And then I stood up and replied, you know of whom you are reminding me? You remind me of a rabbi who once was approached by two people from his parish who were involved in a quarrel. The one contended that the other's cat had stolen and eaten up 2 pounds of butter, while the owner of the cat said, that's not only not true, it's sheerly impossible. My cat doesn't care for butter. Now it was up to the rabbi to pose as a Solomon and to come up with a final judgment in terms of justice, and he ordered the one, bring me the cat. They brought him the cat. Then he said, bring me scales. They brought him scales. Then he put the cat on one of the scales and asked the one parishioner, how many pounds of butter had the cat eaten up? 2 pounds, Rabbi. Then he weighed the cat, and believe it or not, it was exactly 2 pounds. Whereupon the rabbi said, now I have the butter, but where's the cat? And I told this guy, this Konrad Lorenz guy, I told him, you see, now why you remind me of the rabbi. You trace back as far as it's possible all human behavior. Now I speak of behavior rather than of acting. All human behavior to the level of an animal, that is to say, you only select those properties or reactions or phenomena that are equally visible, perceptible in any animal, any other animal. But small wonder if you then wind up and say, I have all the innate auslösende Mechanismen, what is it called, innate mechanisms, all the behavior types of an animal and so forth. But now where is man? The humanness of man has been shut out, has been precluded. So small wonder that he doesn't find it. Small wonder that as long as you restrict Skinner to this basic square, he cannot even see the phenomena such as conscience and or freedom or dignity. He would gladly accept the hypothesis that conscience is nothing but the result of a conditioning process. Look, just consider a dog that has wet the floor and now slinks under the couch with the tail between its legs. This is bad conscience. Now it's the result of a conditioning process. He's absolutely correct. However, true conscience only begins where the fear of punishment or over against the hoping and longing for reward is no longer a determinant and the reason on which you build your decision to behave morally. And so the man, the onlookers on the street, there will be one or the other who, knowing that he may become the victim of stabbing, still ventures to intervene and to interfere. But these are members of a minority. You see, I believe that decent people are and will ever remain a minority, forming a minority in our societies. But isn't this anything but the challenge to each of us to join this very minority? Isn't it a challenge to do our best? Because this world is in a bad state, I'm used to saying, but it will become still worse unless each of us tries to do his own best.
Well, may I ask you to finally play prophet for a moment? I think that the bottom line question I think that thinking individuals all over the world are asking is, can society survive this nuclear age?
I would say the nervous system of the Russians and of the Americans is ultimately one and the same. And I think that mankind has again and again throughout history found a remedy compensating, preventively compensating for the specific, for the phase-specific dangers at the respective historical period of time. This is my hope. What logotherapy can say is only one thing. In the same way as in concentration camps, in all the prisoner of war camps around the world, those prisoners have the relatively greatest chances of survival, that is, ceteris paribus, under the same circumstances, those prisoners who were oriented toward the future, having the vision of a meaning to fulfill in their future and or another human being to be reunited with in the future. So I think we may extrapolate this rule, this law, by saying if there is any chance for survival of mankind as a whole, it would be being reunited, not only people but peoples, being united in a common task, or in other words, united by a common will to a common meaning.